Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole. I love when I get great guests to bring to you that will inspire you to kind of dig deep and think, what do I really want to do with my life? What is that? And can I do it? When my guests tell you what they've been doing, I hope that that is exactly what happens, that they inspire you to leap into your dreams. And so let me tell you about this week's guest. He is executive chef and owner of alaMar Kitchen and Bar. He is Nelson German. Chef Nelson gained national recognition with features in Glamour, Delish, Washington Post, and Food and Wine. Oh, yes, and Top Chef. Yes, indeed. He has also established himself as a community leader and curator of Oakland culture. That's Oakland, California. I love Oakland. He's going to tell us all about himself, his cuisine, and his wonderful restaurants. Please join me in welcoming Chef Nelson. How are you?
Well. How are you, Harriet?
Really happy to have you here. And it's all about connection. So, our friend Michelle Wilson said, I have somebody you have to meet. And I've learned you have to listen.
That's
You have to
right.
listen. And when the right person is telling you you have to meet someone, you say yes. And so, I'm so honored to have you here. I love to talk to folks about how they got started. So, why is food so important to you, and where did that desire to be a chef come from?
Well, it's been a long journey. I've been doing this 24 years, and
Wow.
it's the love of my life. It's something that started as a curiosity as a kid. It wasn't really a passion yet. It wasn't a hobby or love. It was just this thing like, what is this? It feels great. Like I don't know. I want to do this. For me, like I'm Dominican nationality, born and raised in New York, Washington Heights. Been out here in Oakland now for about 14 years.
Okay.
I love it out here. The weather, the people, the sense of community is really special. I think that's really what got me. But growing up in New York also taught me so much and made me the man I am today. Just always driving forward, but always never forgetting about the past. You know,
And so you're Dominican. The food of the Dominican Republic is yummy,
oh yeah.
right? Were your parents or grandparents making some of those classic dishes? How do those classic dishes influence you today?
For sure. Those classic dishes definitely influenced me. And it influences me more now that I'm focusing more on my roots with my food. Doing it for 24 years in the past was always about what cuisines are the most trendiest, what's the most popular, what's going to get you to be a top chef. And
Right.
back in days, was always thinking about European style food, the
Mm,
Spanish, the Italian, the French. That's what will make you be someone well known in the industry. Now
right.
it's very different, especially for us black chefs. We can be ourselves now. We can cook food that makes us the most happiest, food that really gives tribute back to the ancestors. And for me, it's remembering those dishes that I watched my grandmother and my mom cook. And that's where the curiosity came, just watching them in the kitchen. Back in the days, old fashioned way of thinking was taboo for a man to be in the kitchen,
Yeah.
especially my culture, Caribbean. But so I was always afraid to get in there with them, but I would just watch from afar and just be amazed. It was the energy that got me. It just watching them cook this delicious food for the family that brought everyone together, no matter how their day is going. And they're, watching novelas, they're gossiping on the phone, they're dancing, listening to the little music on the side. And it was just this happiness that I saw. And that's what really got me like being curious about it and really wanting to be in the kitchen. Um, so it was
What were some of those classic dishes that your mom and your grandmom were making that you observed?
the braised oxtail for sure. The lo rabo, that was my thing. But also the one that really gets me the most and brings me back to the best memories is the pollo guisado, which is in term like brown stew chicken,
Mm,
like in Jamaica. That dish, I still ask my mom or grandmother to cook that dish for me when I go visit. Like
that's
it's just absolutely amazing. And I actually make it at in my restaurant, but there's nothing like the way they make it. No matter what high quality ingredient I'm using, it's just the love into it, just the memories, that connection.
now you mentioned something that I think it it makes me feel a lot of different ways. You mentioned that in order to make it as a top chef, you had to learn and like master the cuisines of Europe, the classic cuisines, right? Um, it's almost I think it can almost feel like erasing your cuisine in order to replace it with what is considered, the most popular cuisine to learn, and how it's changed now. But just in that process, in the early days of learning and being able to make those things, what was that process like for you, learning these other cuisines?
It was enlightening. I think for me, because of the mindset of like I need to reach these dreams. I want to be a chef,
Mm.
want to have my own restaurant. It was always a driving force. Like I have to learn this no matter what. I can always eat Dominican food or food that really I enjoy at home. But it was really cool to learn different things. I think as a chef you have to be versatile and you have to learn different cultures, different foods, and that's the best way to learn about culture, right? Is through food. So for me, it was just like, this is the way to learn. This is the way that's, for me
So it
to,
was a positive.
it
It was
was a
just,
positive.
I need to
Sure,
learn this. I need to learn all these different
sure.
things to expand your repertoire of knowledge.
Exactly. Because I appreciate the techniques. I appreciate the flavors. The food is delicious,
Hmm.
and even for me being Afro Latino, the Spanish side of our culture and influence, it's there too. So for me, like learning like the Spanish food
Hmm.
was like, okay, there's a connection there. I feel good about this. Um, but the African was the one that was being shunned. And that's when I'm personally and other chefs now are trying to showcase more and embrace it. But we are using techniques that we learned from the French, from the Italian, into our food to try to elevate it more. Because we want to showcase who we are to the best of our abilities and showcase how much we've learned in the past. So I saw it as a positive. But the older you get in the industry, the longer you've been in it, then you start realizing, okay, there's some things happening that's not as positive, right? In order for you get the recognition, to get the respect in the industry. But that has all changed for sure. And I
It's
think,
so it's so interesting when you say that it's in a different field, but I uh, grew up in my career in fashion,
mm,
and I was at Essence magazine, and I remember the first time that I was working in a lifestyle department at this point. We traveled to another country to document culture. We every year to document cultures of people of African descent. And one year, the first year that I was there, we went to the Ivory Coast in West Africa. And I remember seeing little boys weaving cloth on a loom with their feet
mm,
in the village, and then you go into the towns, to African market, and they're selling this fabric on looms, and you see women with the fabric draped around themselves, and they were wearing like Western jeans. It's all of that, and I realized in that moment what I thought fashion was very limited. I thought of fashion as, French. That the
yeah,
French fashion was what was
same thing.
considered, or Italian, not even American.
Yeah,
Forget African. And my eyes opened, chef, and I was like, wow, our cultural heritage is so rich,
hmm,
and we weren't taught that. I mean,
exactly,
nobody, that was not what we were taught. We were taught, if you same point, like if you're interested in fashion, you have to study the French and the Italians.
exactly,
And then I was in the company of these Africans who were just blowing my mind with the colors and the way that the fabric was made. And this is very similar to what you're saying about food.
exactly, exactly.
When
Yeah,
did it change? When did it change that there was a respect, growing respect for foods of the diaspora?
I think for me, personally, it's definitely the year of Top Chef. A little bit after, so or a little bit before. So the show came out in 2021. We filmed in 2020 during the height of COVID, which was crazy.
Mm, wow.
It was just before that, so I opened up Sobre Mesa. That's another place I have. It's a really sexy Afro Latino cocktail bar, and I've opened that place to really showcase how beautiful the diaspora is. I had this vision and this kind of like moment of clarity for me for myself I've really wanted to embrace my blackness to the fullest.
Mm.
Because even being Dominican and Afro Latino, there was a point where we weren't taught that we were black, right? That we have African
I
descent.
bet.
We see it in the you know old school paintings. We see it in the food. We hear it in the music. We see it in the fashion. But it was always like, no, we're not black. We're Spanish. We're Latinos. But for me, like especially being in Oakland, really like embracing more and more, learning about my culture more, and really being having my eyes open, to what it really is and the truth. I think we have more access to history now, even though we weren't there. But with the internet and actual real kind of moments and people who have lived those lives, and hearing their stories, it's really kind of enlightening for us. And for me as a chef, it was like probably 20 2018 when I
Hmm.
started kind of like, okay, I want to dig in more to this. I want to like ask my grandmother more questions, my mom. I want to learn more about West African cuisine. Like I see these similarities, but I'm still confused and I'm curious. It was like being that first time being curious about food again, for me. Because when you're in this business so long, there's a time where you can kind of get too comfortable, too complacent.
Sure.
Even though you're learning different things all the time, but as a business owner too, you're in the grind all the time, right? Um,
Right.
and it could get to a point where it's like you're just doing the normal stuff. You're just going, going, going because you're trying to survive. But for me, it was like I need to do more. I need to learn more. I need to have a fire to really burn me again and just drive me to where I was before with the ambitions. And it was that. It was like I need to learn more about myself. I need to be more myself this time. I was
That's
doing
powerful.
Mediterranean, but I was like, I need to showcase who I am. I need to showcase my family. I need to showcase my lineage, my history. But that's the thing, we as a people, especially as black people, we have to learn and educate ourselves first before we try to educate others.
It's true. I mean, and you're tapping into something that is so deep
Hmm.
because I remember I have a good friend who's Dominican, and I only knew she was Dominican because she said it because she is a white Dominican.
Mm,
And what she told us when she was growing up, her parents would not let her go outside in the sunlight.
mm.
Or if she did, she had to have like a parasol
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the worst thing would be to get a tan. It's like, what? It's just, I'd never heard anything like that before. But because even though her skin was white, because she would brown and they didn't want to see that. So that negation of culture, and I know that that was true in the Dominican Republic, which, is sister to Haiti, but
yeah,
so many um, issues between these
yeah,
brothers and sisters unnecessarily, I'm sure, but that's how politics works.
yeah.
But the color line became something really important as that divider. So for you as a brown man claiming your the Afro side of your identity, it's powerful and it didn't happen all the time. Like a lot of people were like my friend, and I mean she didn't know that's what her parents told her to do.
Yeah,
As an adult she came to awareness. Oh, I don't have to do this.
exactly,
And
exactly.
so for as you say, digging into your family history and learning more, uh, did family dynamics change at all as you really dug in deeper into your heritage?
Not necessarily. I think for me, what I always learned and just growing up with my mom and dad is learning respect, right? Learning have always having respect for elders, having respect for the past, like whatever they were brainwashed and taught in their day. There's no way we don't have to change that, right? We can just change who we are in the present and change the future. So for me, it wasn't about getting angry. It wasn't about feeling sad about things. It's just like, okay, how to educate myself and continue to educate the youth to continue this progress, continue this narrative. And for us chefs, we have the best kind of platform for that because we can showcase it in the food and tell those stories. For me, when I do these dinners and even being on Top Chef was the most enlightening part because for me, actually, talking about the show, there was episode 4 It was the Pan African Challenge. So we got to eat, my group, at a Senegalese restaurant. It's called Akadi in Portland. Amazing, amazing food. The chef is super sweet. She's so talented. She's been growing so much her business. Now she's doing cooking classes out there. That food really like taught me like you're going the right direction.
Ah,
This is who you are. It was my mom in the kitchen. It was my
wow.
grandmother in the kitchen. It was my aunt in the kitchen. Like the food was just this is the way I grew up. This food is
Right.
so similar. It's absolutely fantastic.
I love that.
It's like wow, I see the connection more now. And I'm really like it is the truth. Like I'm black, I'm Afro Latino. The food, the prominent part of our culture, came from West Africa. It came from the motherland. We need to embrace that. We need to give a tribute to that. And for me, it changed my whole trajectory in everything I do, from the food, from the cocktails, the way I speak, the way I showcase who I am when I'm out in events or speaking panels. It's just like it's amazing. And I did
I
my
love
African ancestry after I came back from the show too.
Chef, you said that Top Chef really changed a lot for you. Let's go to how did you even get to Top Chef? How did that happen?
So I got called to be on the show. I didn't have to apply, which is amazing. A lot of other beautiful chefs recommended me for the show, and they called me. But the funny thing is, they called me during like the huge height of COVID, when a lot of us had to shut down our restaurants and businesses. So I didn't think it was real. I got this call. I'm like, Top Chef, there's no way they're doing this show. The world is falling apart. We have to close our businesses. What the hell's
And,
going
and
on?
and who knew that there would be any people near each other, right?
Right?
Because
Yeah.
everybody was stuck at home.
Exactly, exactly. So, but they kept calling, and I'm like, okay, no, this is real. They told me a friend of mine who recommended me for the show, and like, okay, this is real. This is crazy. Top Chef is happening. They're calling me after all these years watching the show and being in the business. Like, this is perfect timing. And for me, so speaking about Sobre Mesa, the cocktail bar I mentioned, I opened that 9 days before the first shutdown.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like,
Oh,
imagine we have this whole thing about me want to showcase my culture and more and do something different for the town and bring this sexiness part of of who we are as a people. Open 9 days and had to shut it all down.
oh.
That was a scary moment. It was just like
And I
very
mean, such an incredible investment in order to
yeah,
open a restaurant. That's a lot of time,
oh yeah,
energy, money, vision, all of it. And so
big
you
time.
shut down after 9 days. Were you able to reopen that restaurant?
Able to reopen. We came back strong. Things are kind of aligned in the right place. Landlord was great. He helped us out. Top Chef called, so I actually had time to go. So this is the thing.
Mm,
It's like
ah,
everything was like set in stone. Because I'm the type of person, I'm very hands on. My businesses are my babies, so I'm always there, no matter what, with my team in the trenches. So if they would have called and everything would have been kind of normal, I probably would have said no because I needed to be there.
sure.
You're leaving for close to 2 months. It's a long time, especially as
Yes.
a business owner, and opening a new place.
Now,
So
was your other restaurant, it was already open, right?
So alaMar was at the time open for about 7 years. We just hit our
Right.
9th anniversary very recently, and so that kind of had its following. We were set up for to go already because we're both fast
Ah,
casual there. So it was like
so
okay,
you
so
were able to just continue that
yeah,
business.
yeah, and we did some things from Sobre Mesa out of alaMar just to bring in a little bit of revenue. It's that New York hustle, right?
Absolutely. Well,
We don't quit.
during COVID, we had to figure out how to survive.
Yeah,
And survival meant so many different things. Did you get involved at all with feeding the frontline workers
sure
during
did.
COVID?
We're still
Tell
doing that
us
to this
about
day.
that.
So we did a couple of programs, and that was the most rewarding thing at that time. Top Chef was great, and this and that, but just bringing hope to people meant the world to me, and we got to scale up. So we did a program called East Bay FeedER. We're feeding people in the front lines, from the hospitals, nurses, doctors, practitioners, whatever is there, people who are out there doing their thing. We also did community kitchens, which is still doing to this day, which we're feeding people in need in East Oakland. East Oakland's not doing as well, so there's still people out there who need that comfort, need that food, a hot meal, nutritious
Yeah.
meal at that point that just brings a little bit of hope to their lives. We did World Central Kitchen also.
Sure.
Um, Another one that really meant a lot to me was Lee Initiative. Chef Edward Lee, who's a Top Chef alumni, started this initiative where we were feeding laid off restaurant workers. You know, the
Ah,
industry is very entwined, it's a community. Um, and we needed each other because a lot of people lost their jobs. That there was nothing for them to do. All they know is hospitality, you
right.
know. So we were doing hot meals with food with home essentials. So whatever toilet paper we would get during that crazy time, waters, coffee, things that were donated from other great people, we were giving to them, and that meant a lot because they would come over to grab their meal, and some of them would come the next day or even the same night and buy a meal from us. Like that was super special. Like they
Mhm.
knew that we were doing so much for others. Um, they want to do something for us.
That's great.
That shows you the power of community, how things can come full circle. That I was like, we're doing the right thing. You know, we're not making money. It's not about that right now. It's just about survival one, but also making sure people are happy because that's what we do it for. You know, as chefs.
Of course. Yeah. Do you know Chef JJ in New York?
Yes, yes.
So I
I've
know
heard
him
that.
very well, and I was talking to him. Of course, so many of our restaurateurs did what you were doing, but he talked about how so many of those laid off restaurant workers had no food.
Yeah,
And then even he told me for his restaurant field trip, because they were doing this frontline work, and in some cases they got PPP money, in other cases they did like GoFundMe fundraisers, whatever they could to raise the money. But he said as a result, his staff, he was able to keep his staff
yeah.
because they were doing this incredible charitable work. I love hearing this because it proves that even in times of tremendous need, you can treat people right.
That's right. That's right.
And you should,
That's right.
especially then. Yeah.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
as we know, being in from New York too, is like when
Hmm.
things happen, tragedies, it can bring people together. It can become we can create a stronger bond. Um, and for our people especially, we came even more together during that time, right? Not just with COVID, with George Floyd and everything going on. It was, and it enlightened me even more, and a lot of us to still dig deep with who we are and
Yeah.
showcase our people, showcase the diaspora. And again, Top Chef, just that one time eating at the Sinhalese restaurant
Isn't
would
that
change
something?
everything for me.
And so then you're on Top Chef. You're on Top Chef at this moment when the whole world is shut down and you have this opportunity. What what was that like? Because when you're watching, it's like, oh my God, this is so intense. It's really fascinating, but it's intense. You all are competing against each other. It's a lot. So what was it like being in it?
It was just like you mentioned, it's intense. It really was, because our season was very different, from others because we were dealing with that. We were in Portland, Oregon. So right below us, there's still protesting happening. There's fires too. The wildfires were really strong there, stronger than what we get in California. So we literally couldn't see the next building across the street. That's how thick it was. And then dealing with COVID and having to take COVID tests every day, 5 a.m.,
Right.
being separated, wearing masks all the time until we start filming. Um, it was crazy because and a lot of us talk. Really became a family, and we're still doing things to this day together. But the hardest part was not knowing what's going on in the world. Right, we know what's
Sure.
going on around us there, but a lot of us had to shut down our businesses and don't know what's going on out there because they take everything away. There's no phones, there's no laptops, there's
They
no
literally do. That's not just, they don't just say it, they do it.
no, they do it. They do it.
And
Things are
let me back up for a minute, Chef. You said you could see the wildfires. I mean, that's real. That's not TV. That's you. The reality that you got was this is we're also in the presence of danger. You know,
Exactly.
there's the danger of COVID, but the physical. I remember during that period of COVID, when during the quarantine period, there were a lot of out of control
Yeah.
wildfires.
Oh, yeah.
So what's going on internally for you? You've got this competition is happening, the pandemic is happening, George Floyd happened, you got people marching in the streets, and you are sequestered. What happens internally for you with all that going on?
Well, we were all down. I think we were all happy to be there, right? It was an amazing opportunity to be on this iconic show, iconic competition. And because, there's so many chefs that try to apply, and for them to choose you, it's a huge honor. It changes everything. Especially for me, having being in the business for so long, my thing was, yes, I want to win, but what do I do after it? How do I take that ball, that momentum, and create more opportunities for myself, for my businesses? It was that mindset. Again, going back to New York, even Oakland mindset, just like, what can I do with these great opportunities I'm getting now? How can I keep that going? So my vision was always, I'm going to showcase myself to the fullest, showcase my people, my culture. Like that's the way I'm going to go, no matter what. And at that point, I wasn't cooking much Dominican or Afro Latin food or West
Okay.
African food, but I wanted to do it there. I was like, I'm going to go out of my comfort zone, but it's not really my out of my comfort zone because this food really, I'm connected to it. I grew up in it.
So
There's
what
this,
were some of the dishes that you made on the show?
even the first episode. So we did a blind taste challenge, right? And we got all these cool little birds. People remember I got a chucker, which I don't know what it was, but it was this mini bird like a quail. And I did the pollo guisado. I did my grandma's dish. And
Wow.
the thing is, my mom would always use regular chicken, but my grandmother would go old school with game hen, you know,
Ah,
pheasant and stuff like that they have.
which is a much stronger flavor, right?
Yeah, you have to cook it longer. So the bird was very similar to that, and I was like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna make my grandmother proud. I did that. Some wild rice. I did some tostones, the green plantains. I did beautiful stewed beans, and that bitter orange Borghi sauce was out of this world. Like if you go back to the episode,
Yeah.
um, they didn't know which chef cooked what, but main thing that's about me is like this food is telling a story. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. We have that's what we do. We tell stories, and that's how you connect with your guests more with what you're trying to you know showcase with your food. It's a
That's
plate
right.
that showcases a memory, an inspiration, something you learn from traveling, a history. It's this connection with it that we have, and we want to showcase to you guys. So for me, that dish was like I'm going full force with it. And the beautiful thing about our season two, I want to really mention, is that the diversity was there. It was the most black chefs ever on the show.
Who was on there with you?
Chris Viard out of New Hampshire, amazing Haitian chef, and he, like me, wasn't really doing our food. Now he has a Haitian restaurant. He's
Wow.
incorporating his culture more. He's cooking with his mom as a restaurant. Like me and him really connected so much so far in that, and we're doing what we loving to do now. We're digging in
Beautiful.
deep to who we are and telling these stories. Chef Dawn Burrell out of Houston, amazing, amazing chef. She made it to the finals. She's opening up her first restaurant in about a month or so, called Late
Great.
August. Kiki Luia, amazing chef, one of the best female chefs, or just chefs all around in the nation. She has restaurants in Detroit. She's so awesome. And then Roscoe Hall. He's in Alabama, Georgia area. He
Yep.
has been doing so many different type of cuisines. He even cooked out here in California at the world famous Chez Panisse. He
Okay.
did that, but now he's kind of like a little out of the chef world. You got to follow him. He's doing art now, and it's funny
Wow.
because when he on the show where we were kind of staying, because we stayed in a hotel, he started doing drawings, and it was a way to cope and like from not knowing how his family's feeling and this and that, being away. But he was doing this amazing art featuring art history. People who actually dealt with real slavery, real oppression back in the days who paved the way for us, and shed their blood for us. He was showcasing them in his art, and it was really cool to see. And now he's actually doing it and touring with that.
Isn't that
So
amazing?
it's like a lot of us came out of that really like focus on where we want to go next, where we should focus on more to be who we are and actually, uplift everyone, especially.
I love that it that Top Chef had you dig so deep that you went to your core, right?
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
then that's what has to come out. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't happen for everyone. There's some chefs from the past who have horror stories, but I think we were different because we were so down and we bonded so closely because of that, right? We didn't know the world is falling apart. We're just here together, and the production team really took care of us. They're amazing group. They're really a family. They made us feel safe. They made us feel, just comfortable, even in the state that we were in. But us as a chefs, we really connected more, and just like we needed each other. And our season really changed the game because it wasn't hardly any drama. It was we were helping each other out, and that was genuine. We just wanted to do that. We wanted to showcase with our hearts and cook with our hearts, and it brought us so close together.
And I'm sure these are now friendships for life.
Exactly, absolutely.
So I want to go back. What formal training did you have to become a chef? Because people do all kinds of things, but what did you do? What was your trajectory?
So for me, I did go to culinary school. It was known as the New York Restaurant School back in the days. Now it's the Art Institute, and they have a fantastic culinary program. Learned a lot of the basics, but learned great techniques. But where I really made my footing is actually working at restaurants.
Yes.
First restaurant was a place called Hispaniola in Washington Heights, which is fantastic. It was showcasing Afro Latino food blended with Japanese. The chef was
Mhm.
like did a lot of stints in
Nice.
Japan and was doing this like Dominican, Haitian, Japanese fusion, which is really cool. Um, a place that really like set my made me learn more about the history of this industry and having more respect for it and learning how to work in a team environment was a restaurant called Joseph Citarella. It was in
Sure.
Midtown, right by Radio Music City Hall. Um, and yeah, the place was like sat 250 people, financial district. It was crazy during lunch, but just the way we use our stations to create things and communicate together was amazing. If you watch the show like The Bear now, right? People are watching the
Uh-huh.
show. Um, Instances that happened there were happening there too. Like it was
Okay.
an experience, for me, like, oh wow, this is very intense, a lot of pressure, but you have to work as a team to make it flow. And that's
Well,
where
I remember reading Marcus Samuelson's book, Yes, Chef,
Mhm.
Woo,
Yeah.
where he talks about how intense. Actually, one of the people who was in his class, I think this was in France, literally cut his finger off so
Wow.
that he would have to be excluded from the program because he said the pressure was too great and he just couldn't handle it. So it is a pressure cooker, right?
Oh,
You're in those restaurants, you have to perform, you have to learn how to work together. There are all kinds of things that are more than just chopping a vegetable, or like
exactly.
it's political.
It really
So
is.
how were you treated, and did you ever feel that you were discriminated against being a black man?
For me, I didn't deal with it so much, and I think
Hmm.
it's the fact that I'm lighter skinned.
Hmm.
Looking back at him and keeping it real. Um, us light skinned brothers and sisters can get away with a few more things than our others can, and it's really messed up that that's the case. But you know, I dealt with a couple things. I didn't move up the ladder as fast. I didn't get all the opportunities, but I was always a quiet kid who just learned and absorbed. Right. I did my cooking spoke highly and spoke all the words I wanted to do to have it to do. Um, but there was times like I remember one point I was interviewing for this job. It was a sous chef position. I felt I was ready, but the chef who was interviewing me kind of, and I was, in a suit and like really good, presentable, but I had cornrows at the time.
Ah,
And, that didn't look as professional to the chef. So he started hitting me with questions that had nothing to do with food. And I was like, I was ready. This chef was, wouldn't name his name, but very famous at the time. Um, and I really wanted to work there. I wanted to learn from him and be in this beautiful restaurant and just learn my craft. But and I was ready for this interview. I was preparing myself for almost 3 weeks. Was doing testing with other people and just doing mock interviews. I was totally ready. But when he started asking me these questions, I broke down. Like I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I was fumbling through my words. Like I never experienced that, and I was like, "Wow, this is doesn't feel good." And I can tell why these questions are happening. It's just like things that had nothing to do with restaurant, but then he would throw a restaurant question in between that, and it was like, "Shit, I don't know what to say." Like I said something that just didn't make sense. Something about how do you cook short ribs? One question, and do you use stock or water? And I said water, and then he asked me like why? Why wouldn't you use stock? It's the way you get better flavor. And for me, deep down, I'm like, yes, I always use stocks. It's what I learned. Why did I say water? You know, but it's all these other questions he was asking, kind of about my hair and just where I look and where I live. Questions aren't professional at the time, but it's like he was testing me, but intentionally, because of the way I looked. And I look back at that, and it makes me be a better chef. Or like, I don't want to treat people like that. I don't want to have anyone else feel the way I felt that time, even if it's just an interview. You still have to show respect, right? Um, so, and then this other little instances, but nothing too crazy for me. I just kind of was a quiet kid to the side. I've definitely seen others get treated badly with their skin color, um, and I was always kind of there for them. But it's a industry that has definitely been through a lot of toxic moments. It's definitely changed, though. I gotta say, it's definitely changing.
gotten better over time.
Yeah, not fully, but as you can see, you see a lot more of us in this industry doing amazing things, like Chef JJ, Chef Eric Ajapong's all over TV. That brother's from New York. We're getting more opportunities now. I think after this last few years, it's really a time for us to shine. And a lot of us are doing it so beautifully where we're showcasing the whole diaspora. That's
I
what
love
makes it
it.
more fantastic. We're not doing the same food. We're all taking from our culture and our history and doing these different things that really showcase who we are and show us how rich our history is.
That's beautifully. And as we talk about culture and how you're digging deep to our African roots and to your Dominican roots in the cuisine, you know, also things are happening not necessarily fortifying the culture that has been so vibrant in Oakland. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's a little crazy with the homelessness and the crimes. It's just like there's no consequences for bad things. And I understand we're trying to, social justice and everything, and trying to change the narrative and keeping people from just going down the wrong path. But some people just are in the wrong path no matter what, right? No matter what we teach them, no matter we give them any good resources, they're doing things that just doesn't make any sense. It's just we just had a shooting the other day, which is so sad. Just two cars just shooting at each other, and it's a lot of the young generation, unfortunately. Which I think during this time where we're shut down, it's just like people just went a little too crazy.
Yeah.
And
A friend of mine was just in San Francisco very recently, and she told me, that term, the zombie apocalypse. She said
mhm,
that's what it looked like. She
yeah,
turned the corner, and she said there were like 500 people in a pack
yeah,
that were that appeared to be homeless, that appeared to be on some kind of a drug, that were just sort of
yeah,
like not present, and that it was dangerous. Somebody threw something at the Uber car that she was in,
wow,
that exploded when it got to the car. Nobody got hurt, but it was, I mean, she was shocked.
yeah,
And this is somebody who's traveled a lot, but that our beautiful California is, as you say, that there's well, there's a lot of despair,
Yeah,
and whenever there's a lot of drugs, bad things happen.
yeah. Unfortunately, and the messed up part about it is that everything was on the up and up. Like everything was changing beautifully. It's such a diverse melting pot of cultures here in Oakland, especially, and it's the community was always so strong and strong bonded. Like now, everything's kind of falling apart in a way, and not fully. There's a lot of us who are optimistic. I'm optimistic about that things are going to get better. We're still trying to give back as much as we can to community, feed people in need. We even do internships with the kids, bringing them into a restaurant, teach them how to be strong leaders, how to work as a team.
That's
Always trying to give back as much as we can, especially to the youth. I
that's
think what happened during all these shutdowns too is this, especially the schools lost a lot of funds, a lot of resources. Right? There's no more after school programs, especially here. There's no sports activities. A lot of our teams left, unfortunately, and
So what do the kids do?
that's the thing. Just going out there living in a video game. That's the unfortunate thing. No one's coming out, and when they're coming out, they're doing some crazy things. So it's so sad to see. But I think things will change. When you go down, you get right back up, and things get stronger. Just like any beautiful city.
Sure.
So a lot of us are holding on. There's a lot of people who want to leave and just like get away from everything, but we're holding on, still trying to showcase who we are, still showcase our beautiful culture, beautiful people. There's a lot of positives there.
And what's your vision for the future? You have two restaurants in the Oakland area. This Top Chef certainly kind of churned things up, and things are going very, very nicely for you. What do you see as you look forward?
For me, it's showcasing how large, how vast, how beautiful the African diaspora is. Showcasing every culture that's within that whole world there, and showcasing that we're all the same people, but we have influenced the world a lot, right? I think it's important to showcase that because we were always so stereotyped that all we do is one type of food, one type of cuisine. Even like before, right? If you're an African American and then you're a Caribbean, African, French, everyone sees us so differently. Like we're not the same people. Yeah, we have the same skin color, but we don't. There's nothing similar about us. Now we're realizing that we all come from one place. We did, whether we were shipped out in a bad way or some of us are immigrants and came to really live a dream and change great things for our families. It's We have to showcase more of that. We have to educate ourselves. We have to showcase how beautiful we are, and really come together strongly. Not just African Americans, but everyone involved within this diaspora, and keep pushing the culture forward. Keep showcasing positivity, motivating our youth to keep in that change direction. So for me, that's my thing, and I do it through food. I do it through food, to speaking. It's just storytelling all the time.
Well, and you started off saying the importance of storytelling. So, is there a book in here? What is Chef working on a book right now?
Something's happening. Almost there. I can't say too much, but
Almost there. That's
going
good.
that direction. Hopefully, some more things on TV. Will be great. Just again, storytelling in different aspects, but
Mhm.
definitely food is the one thing for me that I know brings people together. So I'll never leave this industry in that way, but I want to venture out in other things that brings who I am, brings my chef world into these other, you know, spaces, and just again, just makes people happy, tell these cool stories, and brings people together.
And where can people go to learn more about you and your restaurants?
So I have my own website, chefnelsonherman.com, Nelson German. You can see what I'm doing there. You can see some cool recipe videos, any upcoming events. Also, check us out at alaMar, which alaMar now is a Dominican restaurant. So we
Uh-huh.
changed it around. It was always kitchen and bar. It was always a seafood restaurant because alaMar means to the sea. We just made it a full Dominican restaurant because one, we hit our 9-year anniversary. So we became a milestone, a staple of Oakland, but we became the old restaurant. So one thing as advice for any business owner, whether you're in my industry or other, you always have to pivot, just like we learned through COVID, where you always have to refresh yourself, have to evolve. And we did just that. It's still the same place, but just evolution, changed some things around, got more focus about the history we're trying to showcase with the food. And now we're alaMar Dominican Kitchen. So check us out on Instagram or Facebook, on our website, alaMar Oakland. Sobre Mesa, sexy cocktail bar, showcasing the African diaspora in cocktails and bites, the atmosphere. It's a place that makes you feel like you're somewhere else. It's really special. So Sobre Mesa.
And they're both in Oakland, right?
In Oakland, both in uptown, downtown Oakland. Again, we're trying to keep things going, trying to stay positive, trying to bring people together as much as we can. And we're doing it. I gotta say, we bring the people who come to both places are from so many different cultures, and everyone's just having a good time. It's a beautiful thing to see when you see diversity, everyone's smiling, cheering each other, eating together, breaking bread together. That's what it's all about.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us. Can't wait to taste some of that food, Chef.
I appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole. That was good. I can't wait to eat Chef's food. It sounds delicious, and it's got all that history packed into. Until next time, have a great day and make